All right, so I think we'll get started. So good afternoon, everybody. I hope you are comfortable in these seats. I didn't know it was an auditorium, so glad. So it's end of the day. We'll try to keep it as interactive as possible. So if you have any questions towards the end of the session, you can actually go to each of these mics and ask your questions. So just to get started, so this is the session for our identity and access management story. We will be covering our on-premises gateway as well as our cloud services offering access management. My name is Akhilesh Dhawan. I'm a Director of Product Marketing, looking across our security portfolio of cloud services. And I am joined by Praveen. You want to introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hello, my name is Praveen Raguraman. I'm the Director of Products responsible for access control and our gateway solutions.
All right, so just to get started, set up the agenda, we'll go over the market overview, briefly talk about, what we're seeing in the customer accounts, and then we'll start introducing our Citrix Access solutions. We also have our customers for a brief introduction on what they're doing with Citrix Gateway, and one of our premier partners, Integra, is also here talking about Citrix Access Control and what they are hearing from the customers and traction that Access Control is getting. And we'll have a lot of fun. We'll have a lot of demos for you. So let's get started. So obviously the experience imperative, right? So this is something that a lot of CIOs are looking for. How do we improve the user experience or the IT experience to manage their IT and access and all of the different solutions that they have deployed in the data centers? Obviously the requirements are coming in from applications that are now being deployed more primarily into the SaaS or in the cloud, to get a cloud journey, get data faster into the cloud, get access to the cloud for the users. And the users are also now accessing these applications not only from their corporate managed devices, but also from their own personal devices like an Android phone, an iOS phone. But the concern becomes is how do I control access to these applications which are not anymore in my on-prem data centers? And how do I control access based on the devices that my users are using? How do I control data or access that they're storing on their personal devices, for example? So this is the journey that we are taking with Citrix Access Control and providing the end-to-end solution to get secure access and a single sign-on experience, not only to your on-prem web apps or your virtual apps, but also to your SaaS applications, access to your internet, and so on and so forth. So the future of works, as we talk about in the Synergy, puts the people and their experience at the center, while obviously applying all the security policies in place, which does not impede the experience. So some of the challenges that we talk about are, obviously, we look at a lot of customers. We have spoken to a lot of customers. We all have too many apps. On an average, I think at the keynote, we're talking about, on an average, Citrix customers have more than 500 applications deployed in the data centers or in a SaaS environment, and so on and so forth. Now, obviously, to access all these different form factors of applications, they have deployed very point-specific solutions. So you are all using Gateway mostly for your virtual apps and desktops, but a lot of our customers are also using some third-party single sign-on solutions for their SaaS applications and an SSL VPN solution for their on-prem web applications and so on and so forth. So there are too many access points as well. And how do I control these different access points that are coming into my data center and controlling access to my applications? It is obviously becoming too complex for me to now manage these different access points and apply security policies that are consistent across all these data points. So we have solution around access management that helps you, that we're going to talk about, that gives you single sign-on to all your applications, whether it is SaaS application, web application, or Citrix virtual apps and desktops. Obviously, most concerning about improving the end user experience, as well as for IT, it becomes a one solution to manage, which becomes a much more efficient process, as opposed to having 3 or 4 solutions and then have 3 or 4 different support teams to manage those solutions. And then if you have one solution, you can actually apply security policies that are consistent, that are also very timely, and that are granular across all these different applications. And that obviously falls into our complete story around the balanced approach that we take with experience, choice, and security, keeping the people-centric or a user-centric focus. So let's talk about what these access offerings are. The first one obviously is most of you might be using the Citrix Access or Citrix Gateway for your virtual apps and desktop environments. This is an on-prem solution. This can be deployed in cloud. Comes in various form factors, hardware or virtual form factors that you can use depending on the location. Then we also introduced last year was our Citrix Access Control services and the Citrix Gateway service, which is basically a SaaS or a cloud-based offering fully managed by Citrix. So we'll start with Gateway first because that's where I think most of the customers are using today. So obviously you're using it for Citrix virtual apps and desktops, but obviously it goes beyond that. As I was talking earlier, we have too many access points controlling different applications, and that becomes it very hard to manage. Now, when we introduced Citrix Unified Gateway in the past, which is now called Citrix Gateway, our thinking was, how do we provide our customers one solution they can manage centrally and apply security policies across all different applications, not only the Citrix VDI but also across SaaS and web applications. And the intention was a lot of customers wanted to stay on-prem, and this is the solution that we had targeting to those customers, and not only consolidate those access points, but also provide a single sign-on experience across all different applications, whether they are SaaS, web, or virtual apps. In the end, providing a much better end-user experience. So let's talk about what updates we have made for the Citrix Gateway product in the recent times. More specifically for virtual applications and desktops, we have made a lot of enhancements and support for your existing protocols like the HDX Adaptive Access or HDX. With the new enhancements, we have a complete HDX Insight support. So if you are using HDX Insight, there was a limitation in the past that you cannot enable HDX Insight if you have HDX Adaptive Access. And then obviously we have some enhancements in the RDP. If you are using Microsoft RDP, we have made a lot of enhancements in that area where you can obviously keep a single sign-on experience coming in from the Gateway portal. For the security sensitive customers, we also released a self-service password reset option for users authenticating against the Active Directory, as well as we've had this N-factor framework that has been really kind of successful and important for our customers. To make things easier for applying those N-factor policies, we also released a visualizer where you can actually drag and drop the policies and picture them exactly how they're going to be enforced once a user logs in through the Gateway portal. For the SaaS and web applications, we are in tech preview for supporting the web apps. We have the web apps VPN-less experience, and it's a GA product, not a tech preview. You can actually now clientless VPN into your on-premise web apps using the Citrix Gateway product, as well as a complete FQDN-based split tunneling and always-on functionalities for your web applications and any applications that you are deployed on premises. So with that, I think I'll invite Srini. Srini is an enterprise engineer with Prime Healthcare, and they had deployed virtual apps and desktops along with the Citrix Gateway for specifically ICA proxy when they started the journey 6 years ago. So Srini, welcome, and let's talk about what we have done with Citrix Gateway.
Hi everyone.
So Srini, when you deployed Citrix Gateway for virtual apps and desktops, that was mostly primarily for your ICA proxy use case,
Yeah.
where your remote users were coming in and accessing your virtual apps and desktops.
Yeah, that's right.
So what were the challenges beyond the virtualization use cases that you were looking at? What were you trying to accomplish?
So we started the journey of accessing Office 365, the email and other SaaS applications. We use around 10 SaaS applications. And when we wanted to have a single sign-on solution for all the SaaS applications and integrating it with virtual apps and desktops, plus the mobile applications and internally built web applications, we wanted a single solution that can address all these scenarios: single sign-on, security, multi-factor authentication.
Yeah.
So we looked at some identity as a service solution, but we have to purchase another product, and it's added higher investment. So
Yeah.
we explored more with the Citrix Gateway, and so we configured ADC as ADFS proxy that resolved our issue. Like ADFS is already load balanced on the NetScaler. So when we used ADC as our ADFS proxy, it can seamlessly single sign on into any SaaS applications that is being used by our end users. In addition to that, the virtual apps plus the mobile apps and internally built web application is also behind the Citrix Gateway, adding multi-factor authentication into the mix.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's how we achieved the use cases.
Would you talk about some of the business outcomes that one thing that you spoke about was if you would have a third party coming in and doing a single sign-on, that would have incurred more cost.
Yeah.
What about the user experience?
From an end user perspective, it's a better user experience as they don't have to navigate between different URLs to get things done. So it's a single URL, single point of entry into our environment, accessing virtualized app, any app in that matter. So it's a single point of entry, better user experience.
Mm-hmm. Okay, cool. So I think that's something that we've been talking about with the Citrix Gateway product is not only for your virtual apps and desktops, the use cases can go beyond your virtual apps and desktops towards SaaS, towards web, even towards the mobile single sign-on. And I think one of the key things that Srini talked about was, a better user experience. Obviously, when you have one single portal as opposed to having 3 or 4 entry points, it's a much seamless experience and easier to manage for IT because you can just look at how much extra third-party vendor will charge because you already have the gateway product and entitlement to use that. So all of that should come into the picture when we're defining the whole secure access story, considering that you want to stay on-premise. And Citrix Gateway can help you provide consolidation for your on-premise infrastructure. So let's move on. Let's move on to where we want to kind of focus more on the cloud services with access control service. This is something that we had released, announced last year at Synergy. And the intention here, compared with Citrix Gateway, which is more of an on-prem consolidation and experience much easier, this is basically the same storytelling in the cloud space. With access control, we want to start consolidating your cloud services, the solutions that you're getting from different vendors, focusing on web filtering, focusing on access management, as well as your proxy into web and virtual apps and desktops, and so on and so forth. So this is something that we help you consolidate with Citrix Access Control service. The obvious result is, we'll ask, why should I need to consolidate? Again, is the talk about user experience because users can now get into Citrix Workspace and they can access not only your virtual apps and desktops, but you can start enumerating your SaaS, you can start enumerating your on-premise web applications. The on-premise web applications currently is in tech preview, and we do plan to launch that soon. We will talk about what that is. And it gives you a flexibility to use all your devices, right? You can use your iOS, your Android, your Windows, your Linux, your Macs, whatever you need to do, you can get access to your applications. But it's not only about the end user experience. We do provide a lot of granular security controls that none other access management solution provides today, which is what we talk about with our enhanced security policies with Citrix Access Control. So you can actually now limit users how they interact with your SaaS applications. So you can disable copy paste, you can actually disable print commands, you can put watermarks to any confidential information that you're publishing in SaaS applications. And then at the end, you can also now start analyzing any actions the users are taking when they're logging into SaaS applications or when they're accessing the internet and so on and so forth. So one of the key requirements that when we spoke about the customers last year, one of the gaps that we had kind of identified with Citrix Access Control was the multi-factor authentication. And this is something that we announced this week is the one-time password is now available for your Citrix Cloud services, which allows you to now provide the secondary level of authentication for your users coming in to access Citrix Cloud services. And this is a native one-time password provided by Citrix. Your users can go and enroll their applications, which is Citrix SSO app. They can also use a Google Authenticator app and so on and so forth. But they only need to enroll their applications and they can get started with this native authentication. In addition to that, one of the other key objections that came is a lot of when we talking to you guys, you said we already have some multi-factor with my Radius or supporting my other vendors like Duo, RSA, and Symantec of the world. So when you are accessing your gateways, you already have made those integrations with Gateway when you are authenticating your users against using all these different vendor solutions. Versus when we talked about access control, we only provide you the native one-time password. So one thing that we are in tech preview is you can actually now start using the same authentication mechanisms that you use with your on-prem gateway to authenticate to Citrix Workspace. So now the story becomes much stronger in terms of providing better security and improved security for your users and giving you a contextual set of policies based on your user location, what kind of applications they're using, and so on and so forth. You can now start setting those policies in Gateway, and that can come to your workspace, and you can authenticate your users based on those policies using all the vendors that you have applied or integrated with Gateway. So it can be your RSA secure ID, it can be your Symantec VIP tokens, it can be your Duo security. Whichever vendor you have authenticating against with Gateway, you can now implement that with Citrix Workspace. So with that, we'll give a demo, and I'll request Praveen to kind of take you through what this looks like.
Thanks, Akhilesh. So we're going to just give you a very quick demo of how you can use the Citrix Gateway and its capabilities to use that for second factor and work along with Workspace. So in this demo, just before I go in, a quick note is that what we've really done is we have configured the gateway to be with an OAuth policy. And within the Citrix Workspace, you will be able to create what is called as an OIDC profile and set it up as a client. So you can automatically, when you try to log in, you'll get redirected into the gateways page. And once that authentication is done, based on all the integrations or whatever you may have that Akhilesh talked about, the end users will seamlessly be authenticated into the workspace. So that's what this demo is about. So here the user experience is your end user will go to Citrix Cloud and they're trying to access the workspace. And what you notice is that after the authentication happens, so this is dropping you into the gateway page. And here I can obviously enter my username, my password. And if you have set up any of these multi-factor authentication capabilities, let's say using Symantec or Duo or any of the integrations, those will actually automatically be used for doing the second factor auth. And after that, after the redirection happens, you are now able to log into Workspace and you actually get all the Workspace apps. So this makes it extremely easy for end users from an experience perspective, and this is kind of what Srini mentioned, but the benefit is that you can now extend the solution and get all the contextual access and other capabilities that are within the gateway.
Yep. Thanks, Praveen. So I think this is also saying that you don't have to rip and replace any of your existing configurations and investments that you have made with Citrix to move to cloud. So I think that helps you take that one step at least to get at least the authentication piece, keep on premises, and then you can still move to Workspace by keeping that. So moving ahead, we're going to talk about, obviously we have all these different templates that we have built in for SaaS as well as for web for single sign-on into with access control. I think when we launched the access control piece, we have somewhere around 100 templates. It's somewhere around 300 now. So we are progressing in terms of, we are continuously working on these templates to provide a easier configuration for our customers. But just in case the configurations or templates are not available, you can still configure your SaaS applications or web applications manually. So I think that so long it supports the SAML framework, we can support all the single sign-on to SaaS applications. So one other thing that we also heard with access control was supporting the on-prem storefront, and that I think this is something that we also announced at the keynote. So we are working on, and it's in tech preview right now with access control, that you can keep your on-prem storefront as is, and you can still work with access control and access your on-prem web apps, or SaaS and your VDI within Citrix Workspace. So the way it works is, obviously you have your on-prem storefront, and you also have your SaaS and web apps with access control. Now the question becomes is, do I still have to have two different access points, or do my users go to Workspace to access SaaS and then they come to Gateway or storefront to access VDI? What we're also doing is, all these apps can now be enumerated within the Workspace. So you keep your storefront as is on premises. If you don't want to move to cloud, we can still enumerate your applications with Citrix Workspace. So I think this is this is something that a lot of customers were looking to have, and I hope you like it. And this is something that can help you kind of move to cloud for certain applications like SaaS and web, at the same time keeping your VDI on premises. So, and then we talked about the web applications, right? So it is currently in tech preview, and these web applications are deployed on premises. When we launched the service, we had support for SaaS and virtual apps, but we didn't have support for web applications. And this is a lot of customers saying, can I now can I get rid of my VPNs that my users are using to access on-premise web apps? And the answer now is yes. It is in tech preview. We plan to soon launch it in the same quarter, wherein you can get a VPN-less access into your on-prem web apps using Citrix Access Control. So now it becomes SaaS, it becomes web, even mobile apps. That is something also in tech preview right now. And you can now access your VDI. So all of the applications now you can actually access within Workspace using the Access Control service. So let's see what that user experience looks like for configuring and accessing your on-prem web apps.
Sure. So Akhilesh, I'm going to again run through the internal web apps. So there will be two parts in the demo. First, we'll show you the admin experience, what are the configurations required. We support 3 different forms of single sign-on, and we have all of those. And then from the end user experience perspective, it's again using the Workspace for access. So let's go in. So this is the admin experience. I go into the Gateway service tile, and you click on add a SaaS app or a web app. What you'll notice here is that you have the option to actually add the app based on where it is and how it is hosted. So I'm going to select the inside my corporate network. Quick few things about setting up the name and some things like the actual FQDN where this app is hosted. This will be typically where it's in your corporate environment in your data center. I'm going to select the icon. So what I'm trying to do here is actually configure the Outlook Web Access, and I just check the box for enhanced security policies. Now here I'm configuring the actual connector that is required for making the outbound connection that we talked about. And here are the different options for single sign-on. You obviously have basic single sign-on. You can do Kerberos. You can also use forms based, or if your application doesn't have single sign-on, that's an option as well. So basically what we're really doing is, in this case, setting it up, setting the parameters, and the application, once it is completed, will be appearing on your library for you to be able to then configure it for your users. So I see the Outlook Web Access icon, and what I can do is I can actually go and add manage subscribers. So here you can add individual users or your user groups. So I'm going to just go ahead and add a group of users. This is what you would have configured in your AD. And pretty much now the app is ready for the end users to access through their workspace. So you see the tile for Outlook Web Access. When you click on that icon, it's going to now enforce the same consistent policy controls like cut, copy, paste, or watermarking, and all of the other things that we've been doing for SaaS applications. If there is a link, as is the case in this, which happens to be malicious, you'll see this restricted page. So the whole goal is to keep it consistent, but being able to extend that value also to your on-prem apps.
Cool. Thank you, Sen. I think that's a great experience. I think that brings in the complete story around how do I control access to my applications as well as any malicious links embedded in my applications. I use my email, I get spam like 50 times a day. And there are a lot of users who by accidentally click on those links, and you can now protect those users and the user credentials by applying some of these policies. So which is what brings me to the web filtering policies. And this is something that we are very excited about. A lot of customers are liking it now that they can control what the users can access onto the internet, right? So a lot of customers, especially like in education, universities, public libraries, they have very restrictive requirements for what the students can access from their network. And same as for finance, same as for healthcare, manufacturing, a lot of these customers are asking is, can I restrict my users to not download any malicious content which can interrupt my network or break my compliance by watching some malicious or some adult content, for example. So these are the set of policies where you can define what your users can access. What other cool thing that you can actually do is you also have policies where you can redirect those user sessions automatically to a secure browser service. So if you don't want to restrict your users accessing anything on the internet, absolutely you can do that. For example, let's say social media. You don't want users to restrict access to social media because sometimes they want to kind of, have a downtime and they want to, spend their time on something else. You can actually, redirect those sessions in a secure browser, which is a sandbox session within the Citrix Cloud service. So nothing comes to your network in case that there is a malicious activity or malware sitting in any blog or any social media. You can restrict that malware into Citrix Cloud service. And doesn't never come to your network. So that's the additional capability that we provide that no other vendor provides today. So the user experience, well, the way it looks like is you can go to your Workspace app, you can see all your applications after you do multi-factor authentication into that app using whatever identity mechanism that you have configured with on-prem gateway or with native one-time password with Citrix Cloud. Once you single sign-on, if you don't have any security policy that we talk about of watermarking, copy paste, or web filtering defined, you can access all those applications in a single sign-on manner with a standard browser. So this is something that we had released with. Then obviously if you have security policies defined, then we have an embedded browser within Workspace app that opens up your sessions, and then you can control all the web filtering in those SaaS applications. So when we release this solution with these set of capabilities, one of the feedback that came was, my users are using IE or Chrome, which is sitting on their laptops. I don't want to force them to use Workspace app and the embedded browser that you are providing, because a lot of my applications that I have on premises do not support the browser version, or it doesn't support the plugins and so on and so forth. So I want my users to use native browsers. And other requirement came was, can you control all the internet traffic that goes via the native browsers and outside? So we came with a solution, which is obviously we're working on, and we will be supporting all the standard browsers. So if your users have Internet Explorer, Chrome, Firefox, Safari, we will support all those browser sessions going to the internet. The difference will be, now you can actually start watermarking and applying controls within the standard browser itself. So that's the best part of it, that you don't have to have a Workspace app sitting on your laptops and devices and the personal devices for using this solution. And anything that users go to the internet for, you can actually start controlling that traffic and apply policies for web filtering. Now you can allow the traffic through any browser going to the internet. You can restrict them, or you can actually transfer all your internet traffic to a secure browser if you want to. So these are the capabilities that we're going to be announcing very soon, but this is something that we're already working on right now. So let's see what that looks like. I think I'll give it to Praveen to take through that.
Sure, Akhilesh. So let's actually jump into the demo here. So what I'm going to do here is actually launch a browser, and prior to that, obviously show you the configuration. So in the admin within Access Control, if you go into, you will see a native browser setting tab, and here we are going to turn the native browser option, which will give you the ability to copy paste the pack file. So one important fact here is that the pack file is essentially used to redirect all the traffic from the native browser into our cloud. And also what I'm doing is I'm configuring the actual endpoint to point and have this pack file actually be configured in their proxy settings. And from an end user perspective, when an end user tries to use their favorite browser to go ahead and try to access different sites, they will actually get the different kind of policy controls. So let's say they're trying to access very first time, they will be prompted to go ahead and log in and authenticate to Workspace. And this is essentially the same credentials that they already have. But after that, once they are authenticated, then they can, if they try to go to a site that has actually been blocked or it's part of the security policy, then they will be restricted. So in this case, we actually did not launch it through Workspace, but we are still able to get the same consistent web filtering capabilities. And the other thing is obviously if you have defined, let's say, an application like access for an application or a site like Instagram, then and you try to access that, then we have already set up a secure browser redirection policy for it. So that will automatically also come in. So in this case, as you see, we're launching the automatic session for secure browser, and within that session, now we will go ahead and render the Instagram website. One other important thing here, which is important, is that all of this is automatically controlled through one single pane of glass from an administration perspective. So we didn't give different policies just because the traffic is coming from native browser or whether it is coming from, let's say, the Workspace app. Instagram is something that you don't want to be used locally, and if you set up redirection, it will work consistently in both the use cases.
Cool. I think this is pretty cool. This just and the policies can be distributed through a GPO.
Yeah, so that's a good point. So typically, in this demo that I showed you, I did go ahead and configure it on the endpoint. But what you typically do is you may have GPO or you may have some form of an MDM solution, which will make it easy for you to go ahead and do the proxy configuration. That way, your end users cannot change this, and it's as long as it's a managed device. All of this will work very seamlessly.
Yep. All right, so one other thing that we also announced, and that becomes our next security story. How many people here think that they are not prone to any malware? Nobody, right? Anybody? Everybody is prone to malware. So that's something that a lot of conversations come around is, okay, we are providing you a secure way to access your applications. But a lot of time my users are using their own personal devices to access my applications, and I don't want to stop them to access data because they might be traveling or they might be doing something that they want my data for. So for that, a lot of times what happens is your users can use their personal devices to go anywhere on the internet. Nothing restricts them and nothing should. But a lot of times when they go and access by accident malicious content, a lot of things get installed on their end devices. And it can be keyloggers, it can be something like a screen capture malware, where the keyloggers can intercept all your keystrokes using your usernames, including your passwords, including any PII or PCI compliance information that you are posting on the SaaS or web applications or virtual applications. They can intercept all of that and give it to some third-party hacker or whoever has installed that on your machine. So for doing that, I think for protecting against those use cases, what we also announced at the keynote, if you look at, is the next set of security policies where we can detect any keylogger or screen capture malware and protect your information being intercepted by those keyloggers. For example, if a user is trying to access to a SaaS application through Workspace, starting from the login page, will jumble the information that a keylogger can intercept. So they won't be able to see anything that they're typing, and as a result, they won't be able to capture the username, password, or any other information that is being shared by the user in that particular session. And it can be across the sessions. It can be multiple of applications like SaaS applications or even web applications and even your virtual apps and desktops. So anything that starts and initiates from your Workspace app, it gets protected. And this also includes your micro apps, the micro apps that we showcased at the keynote, all the notifications, all the Citrix files that you're accessing from Workspace apps. So you can disable screen capturing of that or even attempt by keyloggers to hijack some of the information. So these are the security policies that will be available very soon in the Citrix Cloud with the Citrix Cloud services. Obviously, packaging and pricing and everything we are still discussing, but this is something that we are already kind of working towards. So once we have the tech preview, we will obviously reach out to everybody and see if you guys are interested in joining us for any of the new content that we showcased to you around secure your web SSO, your native browser support, and so on and so forth. So the way these policies are implemented is, if you have seen the access control UI, I think Praveen was showcasing them a little bit on the demo as well. But if you look at, these are some of the enhanced security policies that you can apply on your SaaS applications, which is the top 5 rows: clipboard access, printing, navigation, downloads, and watermarking. These are the set of policies you can apply to any SaaS, any web applications accessed through Workspace. The things that I'm talking about are the last 2, which is around key logging and your screen capture. These are the new set of policies where what I was talking about, that protects your information from any third-party malware like a keylogger or a screen capturing device. Another use case comes in in the first set of policies, we say you can actually put a watermark, and that'll kind of be a more prohibitive way for users to take a screen capture and share with somebody. But obviously we need to prevent those users from taking the screen capture anyway. So that's the next step that we provide with disabling users and screen capturing them. Anything that is confidential in your SaaS, like Salesforce has a lot of sales data. You don't want your sales teams to kind of capture that and give it to competitors, or when they leave, they take the information with them. So all of those policy that use cases get answered with the new features that we're going to be announcing. So another information, and I know there's a lot of new things coming, and we want to kind of give you a quick overview of those. But the last set of things that we talk about is, and we spoke about this at the keynote also very briefly, was our integration with Okta. Now, this is something that a lot of customers were talking about, which talks about, I'm already using Okta identity, can you support that? Because when we released this service, we only supported Microsoft AD and Azure AD. So the Okta integration allows us to now, for example, if you're using access control to single sign-on between your SaaS, your web, your virtual applications, whatever applications you're accessing, a lot of customers are also using third-party like Okta to do the single sign-on between their applications. So the first step for us is to now start integrating and authenticating against the Okta authentication mechanisms, including their user directory. So that's the first level of integration that we're going to be doing, which is you can also now use your Okta authentication mechanisms with the Citrix Workspace. This is something at Tech Preview. We'll be announcing it very soon. The future state of items looks like, once you start authenticating against Okta, can I now enumerate my Okta single sign-on apps within the Workspace? So for example, if you're using Office 365, Salesforce with Okta, you are using virtual apps and desktops with access control, now you can actually merge them together within one single workspace. So now your users don't have to go to Okta portal or a different portal to access their SaaS applications. They can just come to Workspace and access all their apps. So that is something that we're going to be doing after once we do the identity integration. And there are obviously a lot of other things that I can't talk about right now, but there are other plans to now provide more security value. Once the enumeration happens, we can actually start providing more value from a security standpoint with access control. And that also brings us to the complete ecosystem that we want to develop with identity, right? So obviously, currently we support the Citrix Identity Platform to authenticate our users. You can also use the Citrix Gateway product that I talked about for an identity platform. Plus, you can also use any of these vendors now. Okta, there is obviously Ping Identity as well that we're going to be we do authenticate against with Gateway. So all these different authentication mechanisms become relevant for Citrix Workspace. So either you are using Okta or Microsoft AD or Azure AD. If you have configured any of the authentication mechanisms on the far right, you can start using the same authentication mechanisms for your Citrix Workspace. So I think that's about the protocol. I want to actually also invite now Pete. He's the Chief Marketing and Technology Officer for Zentegra. Zentegra is one of the premier partners that we have, and they've been helping us deploy our solutions with a lot of our customers. So in the talk today, I'm going to be asking Pete to throw some light on what he's hearing from his customers on access control. What are some of the big objectives they have around consolidation and user experience? And Pete, if you can talk to some of those.
Yeah, sure. So Zentegra, we are a platinum partner of Citrix, and we just got recently Partner of the Year worldwide. And one of the things we do a lot of hands-on workshops, and I've been spending the better part of 2 years now doing the cloud workshop. And what's been really great doing it every month, and I probably do one a week, and I log into the cloud once a week, and I've seen the evolution of the cloud, and I think everybody in this room should be excited by what you're seeing, because this is what the customers are asking for. So early on it was like, hey, I need two-factor authentication, and I'm using my NetScaler on-prem with Radius and maybe RSA. How do I plug it in the cloud? Or hey, the native browser is another great example. Hey, I want to have that functionality, but natively. So a lot of the customers are asking for this because obviously they're not going to run everything in the workspace. So they need to, for example, if you're in Outlook and they click on a phishing link, well, you want to be able to block that. Or the secure browsing, that's one of my favorite features, because hey, you don't want certain browsing happening on your network, right? You don't want the user clicking on a drive-by install in Facebook, as an example. So a lot of the stuff that you've seen here today is going to hit upon a lot of what my customers are asking for, and I think the biggest thing I'm excited for is the two-factor authentication getting meshed into the cloud, because my customer base, my client base, that's what they need in order to pivot fully to the workspace experience. So I'm very excited, and being a partner, it's great to work with the product management team, and as an ex-product manager, I'm excited as well. So
cool. Well, thank you so much, Pete. So I think that does tell the story around what customers are asking for and how we are delivering those solutions. There's a lot of excitement for access control and a lot of differentiation around access control, because now you don't have to implement 3 or 4 different solutions to get a complete secure access story. You can all get that with one single service where you can manage that easily. It's not a complete end-to-end management because this is a SaaS service, but the best part is your users get consistent end user experience. Their experience becomes much important and much better if they are coming in through one single portal, accessing all their applications in one place, and that helps improve their productivity as well. For the IT, obviously you don't have to deal with multiple vendors. You don't have to have a separate web filtering solution, separate single sign-on solution, and so on and so forth. So to wrap up, I want to have your 3 major takeaways around, if you are looking for something to consolidate your on-prem infrastructure, you want to stay on premises, and you want to explore, you want to move to SaaS, and you are having a lot of web applications, you can look at Citrix Gateway to help you consolidate your data center infrastructure. You don't necessarily have to have a third-party SSL VPN or an access single sign-on to SaaS, or different solution for your virtual apps and desktops. It can be one single solution, and it has a complete N-factor authentication, complete infrastructure that can support all your authentication requirements. We support all Radius integrated vendors with RSA, Duo, Symantec, whichever you're using, or UbiCo, any smart card or biometric authentications. We support all of that out of the box. If you're moving to cloud and you are looking at, hey, I don't have a lot of skill sets that requires single sign-on, that requires managing a more security product, you can look at our cloud service. It's a completely Citrix managed service provided to you as a SaaS, and it can help you further consolidate your cloud services. You don't have to have a separate web filtering and option and all of that. And Citrix Access Control gives you a complete end-to-end security story. The other part is the analytics that comes with Citrix Access Controls. It's one place where you can now see all the users accessing all applications and the internet. And based on the end user behavior that we provide with Citrix Analytics platform, you can start enforcing policies based on that user behavior. So that's where I think we stand out. And we give you a choice of identity. If you have invested with Okta, you use your Okta identity. If you are invested with Microsoft AD, please use your Microsoft AD identity. We are not asking you to rip and replace any of your existing infrastructure for using Citrix Access Control. So that's all I had, but if you have any questions, there are microphones on either side of the hallway. Feel free to please, we have some time left and we can answer some of your questions. But in meanwhile, you can also rate our session in your apps, it's SYN122, not the SYN, but the Synergy SYN. So you can give us some feedback and how we can improve. And if you want to further know, we will be providing recordings of all our sessions. If you want to further, take a deep dive into this session, the topics that we touch, you can actually look at SYN219. Yes.
Hey, I have a question. If I don't have a Nextcaler appliance at all, and I want to use a gateway as a service, I want to leverage RSA. That's what my company uses a lot.
Yeah.
So how can I do it without a Nextcaler appliance or Nextcaler BPS?
Yeah, so current solution that we are talking about requires the on-prem Citrix Gateway or a NetScaler in that instance. We are also working on providing these functionality in the cloud natively. So once we finish and complete the story with on-prem Gateway, I think the next step is to provide the same authentication mechanisms natively in the cloud. But for now, if you don't have a gateway, we can obviously, and this is something that you want to have, we can absolutely still talk and see how we can implement that solution.
Okay.
Anything you want to add?
No, that's good. I mean, cloud-based capabilities are something we are considering on our roadmap. So, we'll kind of get there.
Is that something for this year, or because I've been asking this to my sales reps since the beginning of the year?
The intention is for this year. However, as I said earlier, the timelines can change a little bit, but it's the first priority on our roadmap. It's the highest priority that you can have for native Radius integrations in the cloud.
Okay.
Yeah. What else? Come on. I know it's the end of the day. No more questions? All right. All right. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot.